Welcome to the agenda. I'm Ivan Thomas. Today we pull back the curtain on a bill that can unravel the safety net holding millions of Americans together. A bill that doesn't just threaten policy, but threatens people. While America sleeps, Washington is wide awake and in chaos. At the center of it all, this thing called a big, beautiful bill, and an ironic name for a catastrophic proposal, one that could gut Medicaid, strip food assistance, and steal health care from over 50,000 Delawareans. From farmers to families, teachers to trauma survivors, Delaware people, we're under attack. And this is not about policy. This is personal. We are not watching a debate here. We are watching a slow motion gutting. This is an emergency, and for many, this won't be slow at all. Let me tell you what's at stake. It's not just the future of our healthcare and our economy. What is at stake is our moral compass, and whether we, as people, still know how to fight for one another. This is the agenda, and tonight we ask a question. Really, who are we? And is there still time for change? Is it time to change course, or are we running out of time?
Who felt like he did. They knew how bad it was for their states. ¡No les abra!
¿Por qué les pegas?
The yeas are 50. The nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
Welcome to this episode of The Agenda. I am your host, Ivan Thomas. And let me tell you, it's a lot of things happening down in D.C. right now. And we have here to talk about this, the effects of and what's going on in Washington, the temperature about this thing called the Big Beautiful Bill. But most of all, how it is affecting or will affect the state of Delaware. We have on the phone right now via Zoom in D.C. the Congresswoman herself, Sarah McBride. How are you doing, Congresswoman?
Well, I could be better, but I'm glad to be on with you right now. I actually just came from the floor. We're in the midst of a series of votes on this big, ugly bill, and I'm glad to be with you right now. But I wish we were on here to talk about making progress for Delawareans, but unfortunately, we're talking about having to defend Delawareans from this cruel, heartless, and dangerous bill.
And that's right, and that's exactly what it is. So let me ask you, let me just jump right on in. What's the tone like? You know, you like you said, you just got off the floor. What's the tone like right now?
Well, there's chaos on the Republican side right now. When folks are watching, that is a loud beep. When folks are watching this, it might already be passed. It might still be pending before Congress. So on the Republican side, there's chaos because they don't currently have the votes necessary to pass this heartless and dangerous bill. On our side, there's frustration and anger that Republicans seem hell-bent on trying to drive through legislation that would result in the largest cut in food assistance in American history, the largest cut in Medicaid in American history, the single largest evisceration of healthcare in our country's history, period. And all of that to just partially pay for tax breaks for billionaires. So there's a lot of frustration and anger and determination to do all we can to push back on this bill, to fight this bill, and should it pass, to make sure that Republicans are held accountable for the care that will be out of reach, the hungry families that will struggle to put food on their table, and the deaths that will be caused of this because of this bill. And indeed, one estimate put that the number of deaths, policy-related deaths from this bill nationwide every year would be more than 50,000 people.
Wow.
That's of course as a byproduct of the 17 million who will lose coverage because of this bill.
Now let's talk about we're talking about worldwide, right? Now let's talk about Delaware, because right now we feel like Delaware is under attack, right? Like this is a personal vendetta against Biden and the Delawareans, you know, or anyone that came from that's here in Delaware. We're talking about farmers being attacked. We're talking about education. We're talking about healthcare. Can we talk about that right now? Because, and I want you to make this plain as day, that the people that really don't understand how politics works, about how it really affects them.
So first off, even beyond this bill, from day one of this administration, Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress have targeted teachers, farmers, nurses, domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, food banks in Delaware and across the country by literally pulling out the rug from under them, stealing money, withholding money that those folks are owed. Right now, the federal government is withholding roughly $10 million from Delaware farmers. Right now, the federal government continues to withhold roughly 1 million meals from the food bank of Delaware. There are schools and colleges, there are nonprofits across the state of Delaware that continue to see stop work orders from the federal government, continue to see money that they are rightfully owed to serve vulnerable Delawareans being stolen from them by Donald Trump and his administration. That's all before we even get to this bill. Wow. This bill would result in, as I mentioned, not only a massive cut to Medicaid, but the single largest cut to Medicaid in American history. 1 in 5 Delawareans rely on Medicaid for health coverage, including nearly 1 in 2 Delaware kids. That's coverage for prenatal care and postpartum care. That's coverage for cancer screenings. That's coverage for radiation and chemotherapy. That's coverage for primary care visits. It's coverage for oral health care and dental visits. It's coverage for all both routine and very serious health care for Delawareans across our state, more than 200,000 across our state. Wow. And because of this cut, we would see roughly 54,000 Delawareans lose health coverage. One. Oh, two, wow. Everyone else, whether they are covered by Medicaid or not, will see higher costs and less access to care. In fact, because of these cuts to Medicaid, one estimate found that at least one hospital in Delaware might have to close, a rural hospital in southern Delaware. Wow. That's why we're so angry, because this is not just true in Delaware. This is true across the country, in blue districts and in red districts alike. And that these Republican politicians are so determined to pass a bill that they know will rip healthcare and rip food assistance away from their own constituents, including my constituents, but their own constituents. It's appalling. It's a complete abdication of responsibility and moral leadership. And it's all because they are too afraid to stand up to Donald Trump. They get a call from daddy and they will do whatever he says. And that's what we're seeing right now in Congress. These Republicans are more afraid of a tweet from the president criticizing them than they are of their own constituents. And it's about damn time that politicians and elected officials be more scared of their own constituents than they are Donald Trump.
And when you see the red states, when you look across the U.S. right now, and you see the red states, you have a lot of Republicans right now voicing their opinion. They're speaking back out to their leadership, right? To the ones that are in office. I hope and I pray that they understand that you're not going to get reelected it's not just the Democrats, it's the Democrats and the Republicans. How about humanity that will be paying the cost for this? And when you look across the aisle, when you're on the floor, when you look across the aisle, do you see other Republicans that are thinking the same thing that you're thinking?
So, you really hit the nail on the head there, Ivan. One of the things I actually just said on the floor of the House of Representatives was, for the last several months, in this office that I'm sitting in, and in my offices and in meetings across the state of Delaware, I have heard from literally hundreds of Delawareans in person, thousands more who've reached out via email and through the phones. Parents, patients, healthcare providers, educators, hospital leaders, Delawareans of every background, Delawareans across our state, and yes, to your point, Democrats, independents, and Republicans who have a simple message for us. They are asking us to not pass this bill. Indeed, they are pleading with us not to pass this bill. I'm listening to my constituents. So one of the things I just said on the floor is I asked, are Republicans not even meeting with their constituents? Because I know that it's not just patients in Delaware. It's not just hospitals in Delaware. It's not just doctors and nurses in Delaware. Folks across the country are saying this exact same thing. 2 out of 3 Americans oppose this bill. And so I asked on the floor, are Republicans not even meeting with their constituents? Are they ignoring them, or do they just not care at all? And I think the answer is, sadly and tragically, that they don't care. Or they care more about pleasing this president than they do their own constituents. Because we will hear some of these Republicans behind the scenes who will admit that this bill is terrible. Indeed, some of them have admitted that publicly. One of the Republicans, the deciding vote in the Senate for this bill, a Republican senator from Alaska, admitted this bill is terrible.
But she still voted for the bill.
She still voted for it. She got some special treatment for Alaska to exempt Alaska from some of the worst parts of this bill, which begs the question: if they've got to exempt a state in order to get that state senator's vote for this bill, why are they inflicting the rest of that bill on the rest of the country?
Right.
And I wish we could see just a fraction of the courage that my constituents demonstrate every single day as they're trying to get life-saving healthcare. I wish we could see a fraction of that courage from a handful of Republicans in the House. We only need 4 votes to defeat this bill from Republicans. We just need 4 Republicans to show the courage that John McCain showed in 2017 when he voted against repealing the Affordable Care Act. Today or tomorrow or whenever this damn bill comes to the floor, they just need to show a little bit of courage, 4 of them out of 200 and some.
Right.
But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Okay. All right. I've been in meetings and I've heard some things that's what's going on. And Delaware is projected to be in 2028, $289 million in a deficit. If this bill does pass, what should we prepare for? What should we do? We see the flags, but what should we get ready for?
What I think is really important for people to understand, and this is especially true for programs like SNAP or Medicaid, is that they're administered by the state. Mm-hmm. And they are either fully or partially funded by the federal government. So when the federal government takes funding away, which is what this bill would do in both of those cases, with SNAP and Medicaid, state government is on the line. And that means that Republicans get to pretend like they're not at fault for the cuts that will inevitably flow from this bill. Because when you remove millions of dollars of federal funding from Delaware's Medicaid system, the state has 2 options. Either they can find new revenue from Delawareans, or they can cut benefits. And tragically, with the scope and scale of the cuts that are being imposed on Delaware, on states across this country, in the form of Medicaid cuts, in the form of SNAP cuts, and other cuts to critical programs and funding streams for the state, the scope and scale of that, no state can raise revenue to get out of that. So it'll inevitably lead to cuts, to benefit cuts, to cuts to life-saving care and life-saving food assistance. And the Republicans, they like it because then they don't have their fingerprints on the specific cuts because they force the states to do it. This is trickle-down cruelty. They are trying, this entire bill is happening because they want to give massive tax breaks to pay off their donors who helped fund their campaigns in the last election. Jeez. So this is all about a tax break for billionaires. But the way they just partially pay for that is by handing the bill to state governments, and in so doing, handing the bill to Medicaid patients, handing the bill to hungry families, handing the bill to healthcare providers, handing the bill to future generations in order to help fund this tax break for billionaires. That's what this is all about.
We had this morning on Good Morning Delaware, we had Dr. Scantlebury, Dr. Teal, and they were on, and they were talking about like how they had to change their name. Like I want people to understand that there's a big picture here at state. And where it used to be the Delaware Health Equity Coalition, they had to change it to the Delaware Health Empowerment Initiative Coalition. I remember about 2 years ago, 2:00 in the morning, I would see commercials that talked about reverse racism, right? And now we have an administration that's in office, and what they're doing is to make it like there's a lot of ingredients in this witch's brew that's causing disruption among humanity, right? So you now create this thing called reverse racism. You now have the nonprofits, and I totally understand about nonprofits duplicating services, but there's a way to go about that. Now you see that nonprofits that were getting funding, if you use the word, underprivileged or underserved or like anything with equity, that isolates now a community of organizations that help. And now you take away, you attack healthcare, the whole infrastructure, the healthcare, the schools, and so on. That's another part of this witch's brew. Delaware right now, and this is not just a Delaware thing. This is a world thing. What message of humanity or what message of hope can you, Congresswoman McBride, after all standing on the floor and fighting for not just Delawareans, but the United States, what message do you have for the people?
Well, there is no question that if this bill passes, the consequences will be devastating for working people, for retirees, for families across the state of Delaware and around the country. And I know this is a heavy moment. It's a scary moment for so many. We continue to fight back against this bill. We are doing everything we can to slow it down, to rein in its worst parts, to stop it, to defeat it. I was just on the floor with 100 Democrats raising points of order and asking for unanimous consent to add in amendments that would protect Medicaid and SNAP. The Republicans aren't having it. We submitted 400 amendments to try to improve this bill. They obviously were not accepted. So we continue to fight. But I think what's important for people to understand is that even if this bill passes and is signed into law, which if it passes, it will be, unfortunately, because this is Trump care. This is this president's agenda. If this bill does pass, the fight is not over. Our voices matter right now, but our voices matter in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And Lord knows our voices matter in November of 2026. And it is critical that people understand that if this bill passes, Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump will own the deaths that are a result of this. They will own the families who grow hungry. They will own every single doctor's appointment that's delayed, every single cancer diagnosis that is deferred, every single appointment for radiation and chemotherapy and life-saving surgery that doesn't happen. They will own the hospitals that shut down, the federally qualified health centers that shut down, the doctors' offices that are shuttered. They will own the consequences of this bill. And it is going to be incumbent upon all of us in elected office and beyond to make sure that our neighbors understand who is responsible when these consequences materialize. Who is responsible for passing the largest evisceration of healthcare in American history? It's Republicans in the Senate, it's Republicans in the House, and it's Donald Trump. And that they ultimately need to answer for it come election time. The power of the people, as Cory Booker reminds us, is more powerful than the people in power. And they might pass this bill, and yes, it will have real consequences. But in November of 2026, in November of 2028, we have the chance to reclaim the story of this country. We have the chance to reclaim the momentum and the progress of this country and the opportunity to end this national nightmare with our voice and with our vote. And in so doing, turn this moment into what a friend of mine from Florida once called a slingshot moment, where yes, we are pulled backwards, but the tension and pressure of being pulled backwards ultimately propels us to destinations that we've not yet been.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for coming on. My next question is, how can we at DETV help?
Well, this is part of it. Public education is critical. While 2 out of 3 Americans oppose this bill. Far too many still don't understand that it includes these cuts to Medicaid. Far too many do not understand that it includes cuts to the ACA subsidies that help fund people's insurance. Far too many people don't understand that it cuts food assistance. We have to make sure people understand what's in this bill. This discussion is part of that, but we got to keep talking about this today, tomorrow, next week, next month, regardless of what happens on the floor of the House of Representatives. We got to keep talking about this, and we've got to make clear that people's voice and their vote matters. So we've got to have people registered. We've got to make sure people turn out to make it to make it clear where the public continues to be, and that when politicians come for people's health care, the people come for those politicians at the ballot box.
That's right. If you happen to see while walking the halls down in D.C. and you see a Republican that actually supports what you're saying, please tell them to call us. I would love to hear what their constituents are saying. Now, I talk to a lot of Republicans throughout the state of Delaware, and they are so upset about this bill because it affects them, right? And I remember sometime what I heard before in my traveling, when 2 different people can cry about what goes on, cry about what's going on in the other person's neighborhood, that's when we can create change. So if you run across one of your counterparts, please give them our number. We would love to. And again, we open. You got the key to the studio. You need to come on. We will keep Delawareans informed in the world, informed on what's going on. And again, thank you, and Godspeed.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me again.
All right, there you have it. The big, beautiful bill, it may pass. And if it does, the damage will be real. But damage, people, is not destiny. What we do next, how we organize, how we vote, how we speak up, this is where the story gets rewritten. Remember, history doesn't bend towards justice on its own. It takes hands, it takes courage, and it takes media that refuses to stay silent, and most of all, communities that refuse to be erased. 2 out of 3 Americans oppose this bill. 2 out of 3. That means the power is already in our hands. We just have to use it. To everyone watching, wondering, what can I do? I'll tell you what, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for permission to fight for what's right and to fight for your future. Share this episode. When the time is right, register someone to vote. Show up, speak out. As the amazing Cory Booker said, when politicians come for the people come for the politicians. You heard Congresswoman Sarah McBride quote from one of her friends. As one leader said, this is a slingshot moment. We're being pulled back, but only so we can be launched forward. This is The Agenda. I'm Ivan Thomas, and we'll be back because silence was never an option. Good night, stay awake, and stay ready.